Hey, White Sox fans, it's Brett Ballantini here, celebrating a home opener win. Can you believe it? What a game. We're doing this number 23, I think, post-game podcast, and I'm here with one of my very best friends in the entire world. It's Malachi Hayes, who's decided to be courageous enough to jump on and actually celebrate a game. I mean, we'd have a lot more of these if the White Sox actually won games. And actually, Malachi sort of on the scene for Southside Weekly, talking to fans, catching some game. How'd that go? Just starting off, working hat, but fan hat as well, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it was opening day, but the vibes, even as the game kind of started to get shaky a little bit towards the end, there were great. I think part of it is baseball's gone for 6 months. It's hard not to be
Yeah,
excited on the first day. I mean, I know that every year that first time you
yeah.
kind of get across the bridge into the concourse and see the green of the
Hmm.
field and smell the onions.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really never gets old. But I think after, I mean, this is what it's a three straight 100 loss seasons, and a season before that in 2022 that in some ways was almost even more
Yeah.
frustrating than than
Hmm.
than, than all the other ones. I
Yeah.
think everyone's got, and most of the fans that I talk to um, seem to have been internalized enough healthy cynicism to just enjoy being out there. And we all know what the product we're going to get on the field. A little bit more hope this year, sure, but people are out there for the community and the vibes. It was a nice day out there, seeing baseball get played again. So even when they started to let it slip away towards the late innings, and we kind of gotten that up, all right, here we go again. I don't think it's. I think people are mostly taking the good away more than the bad of this one.
Yeah. And we're rewarded for maybe being a little bit chill. I mean, some of it could be just we're numb to it. That's got to be part of it. But also, hopefully part is just let's try to be better this season. If we can get into 70 wins, that's a significant step forward to go 20 win jump and another 10 plus win jump. So let's hope it plays out the way. The White Sox got to 2-4, 1-0 at home. I mean, that's really all that matters because they got five more until they got to go back on that big bad road. We normally might talk, I don't know, in chronological order of the game, but when you have a sayonara win like Tristan Peters delivered for us and the crazy turns of events in the 10th, Toronto gets their first lead of the game in extra innings, and then the White Sox find a way, maybe even in spite of themselves, to rally back the way they did. The thing that really stood out to me, and I don't know if this was a bench call, because if it is, I'm giving Will a ton of credit. If this is a Derek Hill call, I'm so impressed by what this guy did by exploiting the situation. An unfortunate one with Alejandro Kirk getting injured, what maybe looked like at the time, at least pretty significantly by walking immediately off the field, exploiting the fresh catcher and the backup anyway, with what was a pretty darn good bunt. Maybe could have tricked foul, but you're not going to let that one go. And playing the odds that the throw between his speed and the throw, that you might be able to execute that play. That I mean, that's your last bullet, and that's how you're using it. I'm incredibly as impressed as you could be with a backup guy, making this one play. But to me, I mean, that stands out, as a play of the game, no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. And I would want to give a little bit of credit to Tristan Peters. Had a fantastic game
Hmm.
as someone who I've been pretty critical of to this point, and who I've speculated is probably going to be on the roster bubble
Hmm.
sooner rather than later. And then, but I think part of the reason that we've seen so much of Peters and Everson Pereira as opposed to Derek Hill is that, if this makes sense, I think Hill is the one of those three who actually has the secure roster spot. They know what his role is. He is
Right.
the fourth outfielder, the late inning defensive sub. And it reminded me a little today of the thing that was so impressive to me watching Billy Hamilton in
Hmm.
2021, where the tools were there. As fast as a player has ever been. He's got a great arm, but the smoothness and some of the instincts
Yeah.
and the split seconds decisions he made, both in the field, particularly in the field, but both in the field and at the plate, there's some stuff you can't teach. And I thought
Yeah.
the presence of mind, whether it was Venable or
Hmm.
Hill, to both think of that situation. This is a catcher who was just
Yep.
sitting on his ass with creaky knees about 5 minutes ago. He's probably still getting himself acclimated. Let's
Mm.
make him make a play. They always
Yep.
say the ball finds you when you're
Yep.
a defensive substitution. But to put that call in and then also execute it
Yeah.
is
Execute it. Yeah.
is
Even if it is
difficult.
Venable's call. Sure.
Either way, it's a
Yeah.
it's a it's a bold idea and one that I think is probably going to have a pretty high success rate if you can execute it. And it is a little bit ironic, of course, then that after it was an somewhat questionable play on the throw to first base that let that Toronto run come in to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah.
That then you force them to make a tough play, and that's a tough play for Vladimir Guerrero as a right-handed first baseman who's got to reach across his body
Hmm.
there to make a split-second play. Just again, I wish I was in that press conference so we could actually ask them whose call
Hmm.
that was. But
Hmm.
either way, credit to Derek Hill. That's a really tough play to execute, and
Yeah.
he did it to a T.
Yeah. The pratfalls of an immediate post-game content podcast. We don't really have those answers yet, but we'll get them. Um, Yeah, the execution. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, it just blew me away in part because, and I know, it's the Sox have made themselves an easy mark. I don't think we necessarily have to go out of our way to get down on this team because, as you pointed out, even 2022. I mean, how can a 500 team be so devastating? Well, it was the fulcrum for what was to come, but at the time we didn't know that. It was just like, how did this team take this type of setback in a division that was so eminently winnable? Anyhow, point is,
The rest of the division to show up? Have we found out yet? All these years
yeah,
later,
yeah, no
have they shown
kidding.
up yet? Do
Oh
we know?
God, so creepy, so many
Yeah.
mistakes, so many
R.I.P.
unforced errors. Uh,
R.I.P. NBCSA.
yeah, but it's like, I know these types of players, or even just plays, not to overly laud, Derek Hill out of nowhere. They don't just fall off of trees. But we've been starved for that. I know, we're going to see Michael Jordan once in our lifetimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you just want a few guys who are going to exploit situations the way they can, play to their strengths in a way that might, seem, effortless. That might be asking a lot, but you absolutely need those types of plays, even if it is just a grinder guy, a bench guy who comes in there and does it. This makes it sound like I'm like pleading for David Eckstein. I'm not, but I would like a number of guys, and that could go for pitchers as well, who are just going to find a way. I mean, I was using because I had Ozzie on the brain. I was using grinding and grind. It became a theme for this recap, and I'm slightly embarrassed at that. But without exposing myself as a meathead clown, you still do want to see that. And just the fact that we saw it happen before our eyes, and Peters, credit to him, steps up, and immediately pokes a hit. Knows he didn't have to, as he said in the postgame, didn't have to do too much. Just had to get it in play because he knew Hill was very likely to score. Just to see those plays and success, and you're like, what team am I watching? It was such a relief, not just to get the win. A home run would have been great to win the game, not just to get the win, but to win it that way is like, okay, wait, there might be a different gear in this team that we haven't seen for most of this decade.
Yeah, and then you look at the other side of things, of course, which was that Sean Burke was obviously not the starting pitcher today, but he went a full 6 innings. That's
Yep,
that's an inning more than any other Sox
for
starter has
sure.
gone to this point. Grant Taylor was obviously absolutely electric as an opener to a point that I think was confusing to just about everybody, both
Hmm.
in the ballpark and watching at home, as to why he didn't go back out there for a second inning. But I think, yeah, this was a great game for kind of, and maybe not resetting expectations, but grounding us a little bit. They do actually have the capability of doing some of the little things right, both with the guys on the top end of the roster and the Tristan Peters, Derek Hills of the organization.
Yeah. Given that my producer Malachi Hayes has cued our second half of the podcast, let's take a break now and dig into the pitching a bit, and then I'm sure we'll find something to grumble about a little, at least before we leave you, dear listeners and viewers. Hang with us for a minute. We will be right back. White Sox fans, my name is Brett Ballantini. I was lucky enough to recap two openers this year, and one of them, the White Sox actually won. And this one was certainly a fun one to do. A little gutting when you've got to consider, scrubbing your lead, maybe scrubbing your entire story when Toronto rallies to take a lead or even tie the game. But hey, at least this time, all's well that ends well. Um, we discussed, I don't know, the 10th inning, or at least some of the 10th inning. I think we'll get to a little bit of the 10th inning still left in this podcast. But let's switch over to the pitching because it was absolutely, well, for 7 innings, it was dynamic. It was about as good as any team can hope for. Certainly the White Sox can hope for. Grant Taylor, 9 pitches, just absolutely. I mean, I think I called it fearsome. I mean, he was pitching at pace. It wasn't futzing around. He just went after guys and really just sort of crushed their spirits. It was really delicious to see. And of course, it begged the question, Why did we get to see more? Malachi, why did we get to see more?
I don't know. Yeah. Again, things that I would love to ask.
Yeah,
Things that I would love to ask Will Venable. If I had if I had to guess and put a gun to my head, the plan was for him to just go one the entire time, no
yeah,
matter if he
sure,
had thrown a three-pitch inning, an immaculate
sure.
inning. It didn't matter what was going to happen. He was going to be one and
Yeah.
done, which I don't love in and of itself because I just don't love working with that kind of rigidity. As
Yeah.
far as and then we know, of course, as we discussed for quite a bit in mid game in the Slack, it begs the question of okay, so if that's you get that
Hmm.
extra inning out of Grant Taylor, and maybe then you don't have to use Jordan Leisure, and you can go
Right.
straight to Sir Anthony Dominguez in
Right.
the ninth inning. There's a trickle down effect there.
Yeah.
This still isn't a year where winning is
No.
most important. If it's 2 years from now and Grant Taylor is in the rotation and he's absolutely dicing, and then they're pulling him for
Yeah.
Jordan Leisure in the sixth inning with
Wait,
80
Jordan
pitches,
Leisure is still on the team in a
maybe
couple of years?
it might be a different story. So
Yeah.
it seemed pretty clear that the plan was just to have him be one and
Yeah.
done to begin with. And in fact, before the game even started, now that I think about this, Sean Burke was out there in left
Yeah.
field getting himself
Yeah.
loose at
Yeah.
the beginning, even as Grant Taylor was warming up.
Yeah.
Was warming up to go out there, 5 minutes before his first pitch. So
Yeah.
he never, we should have known at that point that there
Yeah.
wasn't going to be a waiting period. I'm all's well that ends well. Okay, right now, I'm okay with it. Right now,
Right.
I just keep coming back to that. We want to get him to 100 innings that they keep talking about.
Hmm.
I really want to see him get a chance to move into the rotation in 2027.
Hmm.
We kind of almost had the. I don't want to put it this way. I don't want a redux of what almost happened with Chris Sale in 2012, which was after a brilliant
Yep.
transition of the rotation. And Brett, I don't remember if you were still covering the team at the time, but there was a bit of a panic there when they said, actually, no, you're back in the bullpen.
Hmm.
Sorry. And he had to, bulldoze his way out of it with the demeanor that he has. I don't want this to turn into a Michael Kopech situation where we say, oh, okay, we're going to start working him into a starting role. Uh, and then it just doesn't happen, and you just let him go one inning at a time for the rest of the time, and then the next thing you know, you've turned a potential ace into a
Yes.
single inning reliever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what's happening. That's the
Right.
direction that I'm concerned we're going.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no diss on relievers, but you want your dynamic arms who can take it, and not all can, to be pitching as many innings as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very likely in a rotation if you can hack it. And from everything we've heard, Grant Taylor wants it. They try to keep pushing him into the bullpen. Let's say by 2027, yeah, there might have to be a Chris Sale moment that says, okay, no, I don't want to be a closer. I want to give you more innings. Don't you see the logic in that? And it's strange when a player maybe has to point that out when it doesn't come across just as, whining or complaining. That said, and you're right, Burke was warming. We knew that with the plan, and this is the first time they're doing it, so it might have made sense not to disrupt. And you may have burned his arm. Say, okay, you're going to just stay out here in the pen throwing. Grant still he's going to get another inning. Well, you're probably still burning pitches. He's not going to get to
Mm-hmm.
85 if he's got to wait to the third inning. But then again, you don't know how the game trickles. Maybe you're putting the ball in play a little more. You're not having to over, pitch. Maybe you can be more efficient, still get it, hand over the ball in the eighth, by just, having the ball in play a little better. I mean, we didn't get to see that play out. Not going to hammer Will too hard on that one, but it's awfully, I mean, when you think of scenarios that would be would be made for giving the guy another inning. This was pretty much it. So, I was a little strange. That said, Burke was beyond what we could have hoped for. Likely, as good or better. I mean, he had the ball for the opener last year. Real good game. It wasn't this good. This was just something we have seen rarely, if at all, from him. And it's incredibly inspiring, whether he's starting in the first or he's going to just keep piggybacking behind Taylor in another 4 games. It really inspiring to see him turn around with such a good start right away. Something we saw in complaining early podcasts about Shane Smith. We didn't see in him. That extra fight and life he had was really inspiring to see.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I'm curious to see whether we're gonna keep seeing
Yeah.
this maybe Taylor Burke tandem, because the numbers are really stark going back to last year that Burke has been head and shoulders better when he's working behind an opener
Yeah.
with enough of a sample size now that
Yeah.
I'm not 100% going to write it off as noise. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe There may be just something about the way he comes out in the first inning that makes me easy to scout. I don't know if they've
Yeah.
identified something. It clearly seems to be working. His velocity was back up in the 95, 96, 97 range today with his fastball after being down around 92, 93, 94, both his first regular season start and his last couple spring starts. So, this is kind of why today was a perfect example of why coming into the season, I said this a few times. I'm actually higher on Burke than I was on Davis Martin or Shane Smith just on the basis of the last 4 months of the season. This is just
Mhm.
a continuation of what we saw most of the last 4 months, which is mid 90s fastball, good command of a knuckle curve, getting a good amount of whiffs, being able to finish at bats and strike guys out. I'm very, very pleased by that to a point where, maybe even down the line, we won't even need an opener there.
Mhm. Yeah, the White Sox, I mean, would have to drill down into the numbers, and I don't care to do that. But I mean, anecdotally, it seems like they've had not necessarily with the bulk arm, because the team hasn't been good, so the bulk arm probably hasn't really come through, certainly on the way Burke did today. But it seems like they've gotten away, sort of gotten away with the opener, even going back to last year. I don't remember games where somebody really got blown up. I'm sure it did happen, but it seems like, the seventh inning, which seems trickier maybe sometimes for some of these guys, when you translate to the first, it seems to be going somewhat smoothly. And again, I don't know what that mental thing could be, especially for a guy who's used to coming out of the bullpen and is going to be asked to come out of the bullpen. There are only so many opening slots. So not that that's a reason to do it or do it with more pitchers, but for a bad team, it seems like the White Sox have sort of gotten away with finally beginning to employ that strategy. The fact that it worked the best it probably ever has today, hopefully is encouragement for the White Sox, at least to think out of the box enough to say, hey, I mean, whether that would work for Shane Smith the way it just did with Burke, maybe that's worth a shot. You're using those arms later in the game anyway. I mean, I know maybe you're starting to mess people up with I don't know their roles. I know they all just want to know when they're going to be carrying the bag out, but I don't know. It does seem like just observing this Costco jersey. I'm not sure the White Sox have used it before 2025. That they've sort of pulled it. They've sort of gotten away with it. So I would encourage them to just in general, just play with the game. And, if it blows up in your face two, three times in a row, all right, shelve it till next year. But is an opener something you could see the Sox using more and more importantly, to effectiveness?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think this is a perfect example of a game where both in terms of the individual pitcher involved and the team you're playing against, where an opener makes perfect sense. I haven't looked at the games where they used the opener last year to see if there's any real
Mhm.
pattern or any commonalities there. But this Blue Jays lineup, is exactly the kind of lineup that you're going to throw an opener out there for. The logic there, of course, is that especially against top heavy teams that are hitting, their best hitters one through
Right.
three, for at least teams that are not still in the Stone Age tend to do so. Um, you bring in a higher leverage guy to see them the first time through the order. So then when you bring in your starter to start with, 4, 5, 6, that's, three fewer times they have to see George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. throwing Sean Burke into the game and immediately having to see, Addison Barger, Alejandro
Right.
Kirk, Dalton Varsho, solid enough hitters on their own right.
It's
A lot
different.
different than having to see George Springer and Vladito right off the bat
Right.
there. And then that also lets you kind of work in the matchups that you like as far as lefty righty platoon stuff. So this was, I would, if it makes sense, sure. I think if you're playing a team, I don't know, like let's say Minnesota right now, where the guys who are going to do damage to you, more or less starts and ends with someone like Byron Buxton. Maybe that's a team where
Hmm.
let's like Burke go out there from day one and
Yeah.
see if he can, get some momentum going as more of a regular starter. But in situations like today, I think where you have both a starter who seems to do well as a bulk guy and a lineup that you're going against where maybe it's a good idea to hide your number four starter against, George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., then yeah, I would love to see them continuing to roll that out there.
It's hard to say you're squandering the start of the season when you're better than 500, but let's briefly pour one out for the Toronto Blue Jays, who have now lost, who who only won. I don't know, they sweep. They only won two against the A's. They've now lost three of four to the Colorado Rockies, and the Chicago White Sox can't be feeling good about that, Blue Jays. I'm not going to bury you yet. I think I picked you for a division win, but still need to note the struggles, the travails you're going through right now. Come on, you guys got to get up for the weaker teams, not just the tough ones. Come on, Toronto. But start doing that a couple more games from now. You were in and at and around the ballpark, so certainly weren't able to witness it, I suppose, live during the third inning, but be remiss to not acknowledge the crazy and strangely positive thing the White Sox pulled off today. They just don't usually do this stuff. So maybe, again, we're seeing a turn, maybe on the field, but maybe even off the field. Brooks Boyer manages to keep the secret of the Ozzie Guillén jersey retirement announcement to the point where we see this real raw emotion from Ozzie on the broadcast, something he's admitted that he's sort of hoped for, though doesn't really think it would necessarily ever happen because he was such a bad player, but also a very proud player. So I don't think of course, he doesn't really believe he was a bad player. But a sweet moment and probably something overdue for a guy that now in these, as he pointed out, these three phases of his life and certainly of his career, longtime player for the team and a standout in his own right, World Series manager and groundbreaker in that respect, and now broadcaster, who we can still love to get angry at him for some of the crazy stuff he says, but brings life and actual some eloquence in his own way to the post game. And I've never put those two words together in my life about Ozzie Guillén, but it's sort of nice to see your thoughts of that sinking in. This guy that's really been a part of your Sox fandom even before you were a Sox fan, sort of getting recognized in this way.
Yeah, I mean, considering that quote unquote loyalty is kind of the one redeeming quality of,
Yes,
Of Jerry
it's,
Reinsdorf that we've been
yes,
fed for all these
yeah,
years, I would think that I would hope that the guy who's
yeah,
been a pretty critical part of the organization in
yeah.
pretty much any capacity for over for running on 45 years now would merit some kind of honor. I mean, is there? I was speaking with I was hanging out with our friend Dante Jones at the in the ballpark, and we were sitting together as this
Mhm.
happened, and has there been another number 13 since Ozzy was traded, quote unquote? My feel was that it was kind of semi informally semi retired anyway, if I can
Yeah,
recall.
that's true.
So it's if that's
Yeah.
going to be yeah, no, I think we need all the good vibes we can get, and Ozzy is a consummate human in the White Sox organization.
Hmm.
He has been lovely and problematic and kind and an
Hmm.
asshole and all of these
Hmm.
things all at once because we are all human and
Hmm.
he is a consummate human of the Chicago White Sox. So
Yep.
I'm happy that he is at the end of the day getting his flowers because his
Yeah.
presence has been a pretty solid net positive, I would say,
Yeah, that's for
in my
sure.
experience at least.
Yeah, given that the White Sox haven't even given out Charlie Lau's number, and that is certainly with less merit, although earned honor, I definitely don't think there's been a number six. And I'm fair to say, in addition to people naturally want to avoid 13, Ozzy says, I don't care. You know, AJ's probably grumbling that Tristan Peters or whoever it is wearing number 12 right now. He's probably grumbling about that. But hey, you have to wait a couple more years, AJ. Yeah, nice to see. And you're right. For better, for worse, and unfortunately, of late, certainly this decade, it's been for worse. The whole loyalty thing. It's nice to see a positive outcropping of loyalty instead of just, oh, that guy's still here. Oh, that guy got hired. Oh, that guy got that job.
Mm,
So yeah, well done. I mean, maybe there's a redemption arc even for the runoff front office. I'm not going to necessarily go that far, but hey, it's a step. It's April. There's a lot of season left to go either way. So let's see where they go. It'll be fun in August to watch all that. I'm sure it's going to be
mm.
like Ozzy.
August 8th. That's the
Yeah,
date, everything.
yeah, Ozzy weekend, Ozzy day, Ozzy year, whatever it's going to be. But I'm sure Ozzy will not sidestep too much extra honor. Well, yeah, it's a win in the books. momentum. Of course, the White Sox probably want to get back out there and play like a nightcap right now, but let's hope they can hold on to, what they had going for the games through the weekend and, maybe eke at least another win out of this and, maybe start to turn the season around, which again is an overly dramatic way to say it, but, not many teams started out 1 for 6 either. So let's turn it around. Let's turn it around immediately, White Sox, so that me and Malachi can have more of these fun conversations where we're not just dogging the team or Malachi's talking me off the cliff or we're both grumbling and cracking root jokes at the expense of the White Sox. It's nice to not have to do that really hardly at all. Like we could go through this podcast and not necessarily talk about Miguel Vargas's, weird throw. And hey, let's face it, tough play under pressure. He didn't quite make it. Mune's a newish first baseman. Probably should have made a play differently there, and certainly isn't supposed to turn into the runner and snap his arm off, which would, be devastating and make him a permanent DH when he comes back. But you want to see this team execute, and they're not always executing, but they executed enough today, and they outplayed the defending AL champions. So how much are we really going to complain about a throw or a pickoff or a, whatnot? Caught stealing. Hey, the double steal was pretty awesome too. I mean, I'm laughing at myself about going to grinder in the recap, but this is a sort of grindy day. I know the 2005 team wasn't really all that grindy, but there's a little bit of grind there. And sometimes you just call yourself that, I guess, then you are it. Ozzie always fancied himself more of a grinder manager than he was. Every spring he'd say, these guys can't bunt. We're going to teach them to bunt next year. And then the next year would come around, they still couldn't bunt. So glad to see some guys on this White Sox team can bunt. We had 2 good bunts today. Not that I'm going to get too jacked about bunts, but hey, 2 really good bunts. I'll take it. We need them sometimes. If you're Luis Angel Acuna.
Not to be too much on the grindy fundamental side, but there's a kind of energy
Mhm.
towards getting the little things right and stealing bases, taking extra bases,
Mhm.
getting ahead early. That there's been a pretty distinct lack of, I think, over the last few years of kind of dead in the water White Sox baseball. And I'm definitely not you're much of a. I typically don't have a ton of use for this sort of testosterone fuel, like let's go type hype man stuff, but it's really refreshing seeing the way that Chase Mydroth specifically,
Mhm.
for example, is a legitimate catalyst there.
Yeah.
He brings the energy up and he gives that dugout when he comes,
Yeah.
pounding around the bases, when he hits a leadoff home run to start the year and
Mhm.
immediately chucks the bat,
Mhm.
when he's bringing that energy and you can see that trickling down to the rest of the team, to the rest of the dugout, that's when things happen, like taking
Yeah.
extra bases, like when you build momentum to actually be
Yeah.
able to execute some of the little things that you need a kind of focus to do that sometimes can be hard to pull out of your ass if you're like, all right,
Mhm.
we're dead in the water, we're 40 and 90, whatever.
Mhm.
And so there's, that spark that we saw towards the second half of last year. There's kind of a symbiotic relationship there sometimes between energy, vibes, and fundamentals. You
Mhm.
know, and today I think was a good
Yeah.
showcase of the fact that energy that we saw in the second half that got us so excited coming
Yeah.
into this year has not the 1-5 start did not completely evaporate all of that,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Yeah. I mean, not to be jock sniffy. I mean, we both, played for whatever it's worth. We know the game enough, and most fans, most people listening know the game enough to know that this is an extreme, this is the power of this game can come like any game, from the mental side. You believe that ball might end up in play. You might make the contact that you need. And I know that starts to seem like, like voodoo and magic, but it's not everything, but it's not nothing either. And the fact that this team bounded back from what they could have curled up, and if this was a different month and a different year, they may have curled up and said, okay, we're just going to walk through the 10th. That didn't happen today. And, that's a big plus for Will Venable. That's a big plus for this team. And it's enough to make me open my eyes a little wider and say, okay, this is what I need to see. We're going to do it again. Now we got to repeat it, but let's do it again. And the fact that the Sox even have demonstrated this gear, which they haven't through 6 games, demonstrated this gear. Hey, listen, I'm not going to, get intoxicated by, this one situation, but it's what you need to see to have hope for the season, instead of dismissing and just pinning your hopes on young players or a new coaching staff or a new GM or a new stadium or a new owner. So, maybe the White Sox can make some good things happen while everyone's still alive and in place, including us, Malik. Not to take anything for granted. All right. Well, hey, it's a winner. It's the end of post-game podcast 23. Who knows? At this rate, we may have more this year. There may be some things more to celebrate than just opening day wins or losses. And if so, I have a good notion that if available, if not, on the road, on the spot for Southside Weekly, that Malachi will be here with me to discuss that and perhaps even with some other folks. But thanks for joining us and listening to our insightful analysis on a game that you really probably didn't need the insightful analysis because you're just happy the White Sox won and when they did.
Happy to
As
be here.
Malachi and I, yeah, exactly. Let's just shut our brains off and be happy and win. Let's go get a couple more over the weekend. Until next podcast, visiting dugout right around the corner. Ladies' night going to be trickling around. I'm sure we'll have some kind of mothership, whatever, whatnot. Our big blitz of podcasts maybe is done for the start of the season at this point. But that said, we always have more coming at you. So tune in, subscribe, do whatever, make it a habit. We'll be around to talk to you. Your Sox fan best friends in the entire world. Malachi, thanks for taking the time. And yeah, we'll do this again sometime soon, hopefully celebrating, more victories.
Always a pleasure. Sometime soon.
And I'm going to keep talking while I find out how to, for some reason, my whole configuration has changed on Zoom, and now I'm going to search for how to stop the recording. I found it now. So I'm not going to go back and cut this out to be like graceful, even though, you're my producer. We're not cutting this out. We're not editing this thing. This is just point and shoot podcasting. So I'm going to cue you one more time. Say goodbye, Malachi.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you sometime soon.
Take two.